back to Season Liberally. Today we're going to learn how to make naan, a wonderful flatbread, super easy to make at home. Takes only a short amount of time and it's absolutely delicious. Stick around. All right, so today we're going to be making naan, and then I'm also going to be clarifying butter or making ghee, putting a little garlic in that, brushing it on the final product. So why don't we just jump right in and get started. First thing we're going to do is we're going to mix up our dough. Now our dough is going to need about 45 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes to rise. So you want to start this a little earlier. You know, you can't just do this instantly. It's not a quick bread. It requires yeast, so it's going to take some time, but it's going to be worth it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to warm up our milk. We have a quarter cup of milk or 4 tablespoons. We're going to put this in the microwave just for about 20 or 30 seconds. I just want it to be warm. All right, warm to the touch. We're going to add our yeast to that. Now we are blooming our yeast for this particular recipe, and the reason why is for some of this recipe is going to be added cold, right? We're going to add an egg that's not, you know, an egg's going to be cool or, you know, room temperature-ish, but probably cool from the fridge. And then I also have yogurt that I'm adding to this. So both of those are going to be cool. So I want to kind of kickstart the yeast a little bit before I throw it in there so that I don't have to wait as long a time when we're letting it proof, okay? So, you know, you can always bloom your yeast ahead of time. That will very often kickstart the yeast and make it so that when it hits the flour, it will sort of really hit the ground running. Most yeast you don't need to do this anymore. A lot of these recipes were written for fresh yeast, and fresh yeast almost always needs it to happen. But this instant yeast, this active dry yeast, it almost never needs that. But it's nice to have that option if you do need to sort of give it a turbo boost. So we're gonna let this sit for a few minutes. We're just gonna give it a little stir. We're gonna get all the yeast into the milk itself and just let it sit for a minute. Now that's going to foam up on us. While we wait, we're going to put in 2 cups of bread flour. Now you want to use bread flour for this recipe. You want this to be chewy. Naan should be chewy. Naan should not be tender. And so that's why we're using bread flour for this particular recipe. Bread flour has more protein in it, and bread flour creates longer strands of gluten and tougher gluten. So it's going to be a tougher recipe when it's over, but that's what we want. It's going to be very thin. We're going to roll this out. So you want it to have a nice chew to it, and you might not get that if you use a different flour. So bread flour for this. Now I have 1 teaspoon of kosher salt, okay? Now you can put in whatever you like. You know, if you want to put in a little more or less salt, the more you make this, the more chances you'll know what your salt, the salinity level of your salt tastes like. If you're using table salt, it's smaller crystal, so I would definitely use less, half a teaspoon, maybe 3/4 of a teaspoon. Now to this, I'm going to add Greek yogurt. I want to add 2 teaspoons of Greek yogurt to this. Okay, we're going to drop it right in here. And that's cool from the fridge. It's been sitting out for a little while, but not long. 1 egg, that's going to go in here. And you don't have to beat it. It's going to beat as it spins, so you don't have to worry about beating it ahead of time. All right. Our yeast is starting to get some bubbles in it, which is what you want to see. It's starting to activate. You want to let this sit for about 10 minutes before you get started mixing stuff up. And then it'll start to bubble up. As you can see, it's bubbling up here. So we're going to dump it directly in. Scrape out any of that yeast, drop it in there. Now I'm using a food processor. Food processor is going to spin the heck out of this and make it it's going to really just spin the hell out of it. If you're using a stand mixer, this is going to take a little longer. You're going to spin it at a lower speed, and it's going to, you know, with a dough hook in it, it's going to spin for a while. You're going to see with this, we might be done in 3 minutes. It might take about 3 minutes. So we're going to just get it started. Now what's going to happen is as this spins, it's going to start to collect, and then it's going to start to roll around the inside and clean the inside. Now you might have to go in here and pull some of it off the side if it doesn't feel like it's spinning properly. If it looks like it's just cutting it like cut-in butter for muffins or something like that, you didn't get it all. You got to scrape a little off the side. So sometimes your house can just be really dry, right? Your flour can be really dry. There's a possibility that this can happen to you, right? And this is what happened to me, is that it's really dry. It's the middle of winter. Things are really, really dry. And the ratios don't work right now because of the humidity. There's not enough humidity in the air, and it's just not working. So if that happens to you, just add a little extra milk. You can always add a little extra water if your dough isn't coming together. So I'm going to add about a teaspoon, maybe a tablespoon worth of milk, and start it again. And I can already tell that was enough. That little bit was enough to push it over the edge. You can see it's starting to form a ball now. There it is. That's what it's supposed to look like. It's supposed to work its way around inside. Just clean the sides of the bowl out. All right, we're going to test it, see where it's at, right? It is not ready yet. If I pull it apart, and you see how it's got this fibrous thing going on here, that's not ready, okay? It's got to spin for a little longer because we want it to be pliable and we want it to be smooth. And I'll show you the test that you do a little later. It's called the window pane test, but we've got to let this roll for a little bit. Okay, I ran it for another minute. Let's take a look at it, see where it's at. It's already starting to become more pliable. You can just see it's not as ragged as it was, and it's already starting to become more pliable. Now, it's not ready yet. It still needs a little more time to spin around in here. So we're going to give it another couple of spins. Okay, another 45 seconds. Let's see where we're at. See, that's really starting to come along. And you can see, it doesn't take very long, 2-3 minutes while it's inside of this thing, and it'll be finished for you. It's close. It's not there yet, though. I can feel it, but if I pull and I do this, I'm not exactly at a window pane yet. It still tears a little bit. I want to be able to see through it. It's very close, though. I would say maybe another 30 seconds, and it'll be done. That's looking pretty good. Let's see what it looks like. I'm gonna actually give it a little bit of a knead here to see what it looks like when it comes together. And it's starting to really come together very nicely. I'm gonna pull a little bit off, and this is how you perform that test. You just take a little bit in your hand, and then you stretch it. Roll it up, stretch it, and then you want to be able to see as you look through it. You want to be able to see through it. And if you can get it to where you can see through it just by stretching it with your hands, I don't know if that even comes out on the camera there, but if you can see through that, let's see if that looks any better. I don't know if you can see that. It's hard. It's really hard to do with a camera, so I don't know if this is coming through or not, but you can see that it is stretching out, and it's not breaking. I can stretch it, and you get that sort of clear look through there. It could go a little longer. And in fact, I am going to put it in here for another 30 seconds just to make sure. But if it's not there, it's very close right now. All right, this took 3.5 minutes to get to where we're at. 3 minutes and is a little longer because I did shut it off once. But I tear a piece off, I roll it in my hand, and then I just start stretching it. And now this is 100% ready. I can see it already. It's already starting to get that really, really thin. It's already starting to get that really, really thin look. It's not coming apart when I stretch it, and you can see right through it. Now again, I don't know if you can see this. It's so hard to show through the camera and through the lights and all that, but maybe you can see that you can see through that. But in any case, that's what you want to be able to do. You want to be able to look through and then look through, I mean literally look through it. And you can see the light behind it, how much light is coming in. You can see through it. And so that's the measure of when your dough is finished. So let me set this down. I'm going to unplug my food processor right now. And we're just going to roll this out a little. All right, so you press the heel of your palm down into it, pull back as a fold, and then do it again. And you could just do it one-handed, right? So I'm pulling back and folding, pulling back, folding and pressing down. Or you can use two hands to do it. Pull back, press down, pull back, press down. And you don't only need to do this a couple times, right? We just want to get a rounded ball of this dough, which is what we have. Now, I'm going to put a couple tablespoons of oil in this bowl. And I'm going to work the sides of it a little, not super high, but a little. And then I'm going to set my dough right inside of there. Now, this dough, I happen to have a proof feature on my oven, so I'm going to put it in my oven for 45 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes. Put this in a warm place in your oven. If you work or live in a cool house, it's got to sit longer, right? But we want this to double in size. So that's what we're going to do right now is we're going to just put this on the side, let it go, let it rise, double it in size. Once it's doubled in size, which should take, like I say, a little under an hour to over an hour, we're going to take it out of here and we're going to finish up the recipe. All right, so I added to a pan that was warm a stick of butter. Now, you don't need to use a whole stick for this recipe. You can use a couple tablespoons. But that being said, clarified butter or ghee is actually marvelous to have in your kitchen. Now, what we're doing in this process is we're slowly melting this, and then we're going to scoop the milk solids off the top while trying not to brown it and to keep it so that it's nice and clear, okay? Clarified butter. We're separating the milk solids from the milk fat, and what you have in the end, the ghee, clarified butter, is absolutely full of flavor and has a high smoke point. So if you do too much, if you make a little too much, if you do a whole stick or 2 sticks, it's okay. You can use this in your kitchen. It stores really well, store it in your fridge, stores really well, and you can just take a scoop of it out, throw it in a pan and saute with it. They use this in restaurants all the time. It adds a lot of flavor. It has a high smoke point, so it's a wonderful thing to saute with. So if you want, you can absolutely just save this after you're done. Now, this is going to start to separate, and what I want to do is I want to take the milk solids that are in here and pull them out. Now it's going to start to look like marshmallow fluff that's been on like hot cocoa. That's normal. It's also going to make this sound. I don't know if you can hear this, but it'll make like a chirping sound, and that's also normal. Now, in order to separate it, it's got to cook for a little bit to really get all the fat away from that milk solids, and you want it not to cook too fast. So make sure your heat is not super hot. Now, when I used to do this with lots of butter, I used to use a ladle, and you could just dip a ladle underneath, and then it would like slowly pull the butter, the milk solids in, and then it would leave the butter. But you can use a spoon for the same effect. And you can see it's starting to separate, right? We're going to pull some of this off. What we don't want is for it to caramelize. We don't want it to burn if we can avoid that. It's not going to ruin anything. It'll just be brown butter, which is fine, but it's not what we're looking for today. Eventually, these milk solids will settle on the bottom, and they will start to cook. So if we get them off before they settle on the bottom, we're doing well. I'm just pulling any milk solids I see that float to the top. I just skim them right off with my spoon. It's actually easier the more butter you have, to be honest. If you have like 3 or 4 sticks worth of butter in here, it's actually much easier with a ladle. It's different being a food hobbyist than it is cooking in a full-size kitchen. So if you have to, lean it over a little bit, like just lean it just a touch to see if you can get both the drain, so you just have the milk solids, and lean it over a little bit so you can get your spoon underneath it, so you can actually pull those milk solids to the side. Now, I'm being a little impatient. I don't know if you can see. There's definitely some fat in here, right? There's definitely some fat, but I'm just being impatient, right? You can be really, really careful with this and wait longer and do it really slowly, and it'll separate very easily, but I'm just being impatient. It's really starting to separate now. You can see that golden color underneath. There's still a cloud of milk fat on it, though, as you can see. And we want that golden color, and we want to get that milk fat out of here. And it will collect near the edge, mostly, right? See how it's starting to get clear? I am getting a little bit of milk solids on the bottom. I don't know if you see that. I got a little bit in here. Again, it's just being impatient. You can be a lot more careful with this. It's not a big deal, right? It's not like you're going to ruin your food if there's a little bit of brown milk solids in here. All right, as you can see, it is clarified. Now you can get it a lot clearer than this, right? You can get this to where it's absolutely almost, I mean, it just looks amber straight down. We're gonna put this on the side, wait for our dough to rise, and then we're gonna finish off our naan for the day. All right, it's been a while. Here's our beautiful dough, which we're gonna punch down. All right, here's our dough. I might not even need flour for this. I'm gonna give it a little. All right, I punched it down. It's now in a nice little flat piece. What I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna take my cutter, I'm gonna cut this into 4 naan. So one this way, basically quarter it, right? And then I'm gonna take my hand and make a little C, okay? And then I'm gonna use the palm of my hand to roll the dough to turn this into a little roll of dough. All right. So for each one of these, I want to pat it flat. And then I am going to roll it out. I'm going to take my rolling pin and just lay it out flat like that. Each one of them going to get that treatment. Nice and thin. Something like, a little less than 1/8 of an inch. Nice and thin. While I'm rolling these out, I turn my broiler on, okay? Broiler's nice and hot. And I can't do this on the burner thing because my electric burner just won't get it hot enough. I have to do it on the stove. I have a cast iron pan I'm going to bring over here in a second. It is absolutely ripping hot, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these once it's rolled out, and I am going to place it in the bottom of this cast iron pan, and I'm going to set it under the broiler. The bottom, while it cooks here and gets nice and hot, will cook the bottom, and the top will broil. It'll get that signature look that naan gets because it's going to be under the broiler. It's only going to take 3 minutes for each piece. Okay, do you see this? See how ripping hot this is? I don't know if you can see the smoke coming up. Nice and hot from the stove. In goes my naan. It goes into the oven, under the broiler. Look at how pretty that looks. All right, next one. Right on, goes right underneath. So now it's hard to recreate the oven that they cook these in, but this is a pretty good simulation. You can see that it's caramelized in certain spots. It really looks good. Now I took a little bit of garlic and I mixed it with some of that ghee. And I'm just gonna brush it on top of this and let it sit while the other ones cook. A little bit of garlic naan. All right, this is the third one. We have one more to go. Now my pan, if I was gonna make a bunch more of these, I would put this pan back on the fire again to really get it moving, but it's got enough for one more. All right, this is the last one. Looking good. Put a little bit of clarified butter on this one. I want to taste it, see how it tastes. See the front and back look nice. This one is, you can hear that crunch there. Let's give it a try. Oh, that chewiness. So good. So good. Really genuinely amazing bread. And this is so easy to make at home. You know, you can just do this on your own. Look at that bubble that was in there. These are really just amazing. This naan is just outstanding, but what it really needs to bring it to the next level is some butter chicken to dip it into. Wow. This is amazing. The naan is delicious. And if you want to find out how to make this butter chicken, join me next week. That's going to wrap it up for today. Thanks for joining me today. Hope you make this naan. Let me know in the comments if you do. Like, share, subscribe. Catch you next time. Season liberally.